For almost 2 years, the war between the Galactic Republic and the Confederacy of Independent Star Systems has raged on, and set system against system, planet against planet, and brother against brother. However, there are still worlds yet to be dragged into this conflict, and still intrigue to be played out, as both sides have begun to exhaust themselves in this seemingly unending conflict. Welcome to the Wizards and Warriors channel. We're glad to have you with us on our next journey into the Star Wars universe. As is our custom, we invite you to get comfortable and maybe invite your favourite cephalopod as we recount a tale of civil wars within the greater civil war of the Clone Wars, and the malicious intrigue played within the very hearts of both the Republic and the CIS. By the way, if absorbing all the info on the Star Wars universe makes you want to create your own sci-fi scenarios, then we've got a special offer on a way to make this easy. Use our sponsor today, World Anvil. World Anvil is a complete package for building creative fiction projects, be it a novel, lore for a particular setting, or the many ins and outs of a tabletop adventure game. Use it to build a wiki-like database containing all the information in your world, both for your own use as a writer and for use by others coming to collaborate or explore your work. There are timelines, relationship diagrams, interactive maps, and other tools. But an underrated feature is being able to whiteboard your plans as the writer or game master so that you can handle the task of making your stories, worlds, characters, and adventures the best they can be. Then when it comes to playing on the tabletop, World Anvil tracks data live as you play to make it easy, and supports loads of different tabletop rule sets. You can lay out gear or NPCs from your database for all to see, and you can do quick searches for lore when something comes up, and even better, your players can too, bringing everyone deeper into the adventure. Or if you're simply writing prose, use it to become immersed and wizened in the ways of your world, so that your writing will do the same for your audience. Check out World Anvil via our link in the description. And if you use our code WIZARDS, they'll give you 51% off a yearly subscription. Although the number of vessels, droids, and organic troopers had increased to a point higher than any before in the war, the front lines were still deadlocked. Though not explicitly stated in any of our records, we can infer this from the events that we will soon recount, as well as the lack of any significant events for the remainder of 21 BBY and the early part of 20 BBY. Both sides had found steady footing and were now jostling for control in the systems they still contested. What each side needed was something to tip the balance. The Republic sought to accomplish this by crippling the CIS command structure, as well as attempting further military offensives. At the same time, the CIS hoped to do so by bringing more systems into the fold politically and eroding support for the Republic. One such event involved Pantora, the moon of Autoplutonia, and a member of the Republic. The CIS had tried in early 21 BBY to force the Pantorans to join them by invading Autoplutonia, but were driven back by the Pantorans and their newfound allies, the Tal species. That was the past, however, and given they could not spare military resources for a renewed invasion, the CIS opted for blockading the planet. Utilizing the Trade Federation's legal status of neutrality, they blockaded the planet under the guise of collecting financial debt. Meanwhile, Dooku offered to provide aid if Pantora would join the CIS. However, Baron Nosloisi Papanoida, chairman of the planet, saw through this ploy and petitioned the Republic for aid. This would lead to a fiasco similar to the one Dooku employed to try and gain the Hutt's allegiance by kidnapping Rot of the Hutt, only this time kidnapping Papanoida's daughters. But thanks to the ingenuity of Papanoida, Pantora's Senator Chuchi and her friend Ahsoka Tano were able to rescue his daughters and bring the whole affair to an end. The Republic, meanwhile, was still divided in its efforts. One mode of thought, which was pushed by the faction supporting an escalation of the war, was increased production of clones and further budget cuts in favor of redirecting those funds to military expenses. One such bill, presented by Senator Sam of the Techno Union, would deregulate the banks and allow for the purchasing of a great number of clones. Senator Organa of Alderaan, part of Amidala's peace faction, was able to successfully table the bill, however, much to the war faction's consternation. Due to a law made before the war, which forbade members of the Republic from entering into talks with members of the CIS, no headway had been made to resolve the war diplomatically. Padme Amidala, the Senator of Naboo and leader of the peace faction, knew that if the bill passed, the war would drag on indefinitely. Hence, she decided to utilize a loophole in the law and sought out her old friend Mina Bonteri. Formerly a fellow senator within the Republic, Bonteri now was a senator of the CIS, representing the Japrail sector. With the help of her Jedi friend Ahsoka Tano, the two were able to make their way to Raxus, the capital of the CIS, and speak with Bonteri. Though she was a loyal separatist, she agreed that peace was the best way forward, but was not optimistic on the prospects of Amidala's plan, which would have her persuade the Separatist Parliament to send a peace proposal to Chancellor Palpatine, calling for talks to end the war. Bonteri nevertheless made her plea in the CIS Senate, and being a skilled orator, she swayed the majority of the Parliament onto her side. In the final vote, it was agreed a peace proposal would be sent to the Chancellor. Amidala's long-sought goal was becoming a reality. If talks could be initiated, it would be a victory for not only herself, but the galaxy at large. This hope did not apply to everyone, however. These few depended on the war to continue, and were willing to go to great lengths to prolong it. Dooku, who had presided over the very meeting where the proposal was accepted, was among those who did not desire the war to end. If it did, everything his hidden master planned would be for naught. Luckily for him, his greedy pawns in the Republic Senate also did not want this, namely the aforementioned senator of the Techno-Union, as well as Senators Nix Card and Lot Dodd of the Banking Clan and Trade Federation respectively. Though they were CIS sympathizers, their true reason was avarice. If the war continued, both the Trade Federation and Techno-Union would continue to profit immensely via droid production, shipbuilding, and weapon trading, while the Banking Clan was the main source of loans procured by the two belligerents. To this end, Dooku planned to put an end to Amidala's interference and make sure both sides saw peace as an impossibility. As Amidala returned to Coruscant to hopefully push the Senate in the direction of accepting the peace offer, Dooku authorized Grievous to conduct an assault on the capital, in which he sent an elite team of droids to target the planet's power grid, which was a success. This renewed CIS offensive undermined the sincerity of the Separatist Senate's proposal. With Dodd and Sam pretending to be outraged, they were able to make the rest of their fellow senators feel similarly, and thus they rejected the offer outright. Coinciding with this, Dooku staged an unspecified attack on one of the Confederacy's worlds, in which Bonteri was killed, blaming the Republic for the terrorist attack, and withdrawing the proposal with the backing of the Parliament. Another proposal was issued not long after this failed peace attempt, this time by the Senator of Kamino, Hali Batoni, which proposed an emergency appropriation bill, which would have the Republic purchase 5 million more clones. Amidala and her Senate allies fought hard to have it defeated, though eventually Batoni won out, as Dooku used the opportunity to stoke further fear within the Republic by hiring a pair of bounty hunters to assassinate the senators of Rhodia and Umbara, scaring the Senate into passing the resolution and undermining any attempt to de-escalate the war. As the CIS tried to pull the strings from behind the scenes, the Republic went on the offensive militarily. At Sullust, on the Rimmer trade route, Kenobi and Skywalker were able to corner Asajj Ventress and her fleet. Though we aren't told how this engagement came about, it is probable, given the superiority in ships held by the Republic, that Ventress was the one attacked, probably en route to somewhere as she called reinforcements during the battle. This proved futile, however, as Dooku betrayed her late in the battle, recalling her reinforcements. The victory went to the Republic, with Ventress presumed dead after the destruction of her flagship. The Republic then made plans to attack the key world of Felucia. It is probable they relocated their forces from the Sullust front to this assault, given Skywalker was present for this new battle. We aren't told of any naval engagement before the ground battle. It may be there was a light naval force defending it, but it is more likely the CIS was being outpaced in space vessel production, given the Republic held most of the major shipyards, and from here onward the Republic grows more aggressive, while the CIS uses their craft more defensively. That is, however, conjecture on our part, and we suggest you take it with a grain of salt. The Republic's forces were able to establish a foothold on the planet by taking over a CIS base, but they weren't able to drive the CIS off the world. Indeed, this conflict would grind on until the end of the war, though we aren't given details on the battle between their capture of the base and the betrayal of Jedi Knight Ayla Secura by her clone troopers at the very end of the war. This is another example of how drawn out some of the battles had come to be. Decisive campaigns, which were won in days, weeks, or even months, were becoming more and more rare. As such, cover operations and proxy wars became the mode with which both sides hoped to tip the scales. It is with this in mind we now turn to the world of Dak, though to the wider galaxy it was known as Mon Cala. Mon Cala was a unique planet on the galactic stage. It was a water planet like Kamino, but while the latter utilized nearly nothing of their native world's natural environment, the former embraced it, building cities above and below the waves. The natives of this planet were the Mon Calamari and the Quarren, and both existed in relative peace, if not necessarily harmony, on the planet, building a society that was codependent on the other and was recognized by the galaxy as an autonomous planet similar to Coruscant. Though the world held a cultural significance for its arts, it was their ships that gave them their true acclaim, as Mon Cala cruisers were all unique, a form of art unto themselves, not to mention quite powerful, with the Mon Calamari themselves having a very long and proud history of interstellar exploration. However, even the most beautiful of paintings has flaws, and so it was with Mon Cala. They and the Quarren attempted to live as equals on the planet, but it was never truly equal. Most of their cultural heritage belonged to the Mon Calamari, and indeed the Mon Calamari represented the planet in most matters, as the ruler of the planet was a Mon Calamari monarch. With this in mind, it was no wonder the Quarren felt themselves held as inferiors of the partnership, a fact which had occasionally led to open conflict, albeit one thought settled centuries in the past. Before the Clone Wars, there was a consecutive number of Mon Cala senators in the Republic that were Quarren. This may have been intentional to placate the Quarren. One of these senators, Tykes, held pro-separatist sympathies and saw the plight of the planets aligned to the separatist movement to be a mirror to that of his people. He would be one of the first to declare for secession and was a founding member of the CIS. Tykes' position, however, was not universally held among the Quarren, as many of them merely wanted more representation rather than an outright monopoly on the planet. And so the Mon Cala Council quickly replaced him with another Quarren senator, but the damage had been done, as a divide similar to the Republic now fractured the denizens of Dak. Several Quarren shipbuilders had left the planet to join the CIS under the leadership of Tykes, forming the Free Dak Volunteers Engineering Corps, working with the nearby shipyards on Pamant to build such vessels as the Providence-class carrier-destroyer. The planet of Mon Cala itself, despite these fractures and departures, was stable for the majority of the war, until the murder of Yos Collina, the king of Dak. This sparked a crisis upon the planet, as many considered his heir too young to rule. The chieftain of the Quarren, Nosari, proposed himself as candidate to the throne, but this was dismissed out of hand by the Mon Calamari for both traditional and political purposes, given Nossor's role as leader of the Quarren Isolation League, the movement started by Tykes. The Republic sent Senator Amidala as ambassador to mediate the dispute, with Skywalker accompanying as protection. Upon arriving, however, they discovered the CIS had also sent an ambassador, Riff Tamson. He was sent to Mon Cala as an observer, but his true intentions were to bring the planet into the CIS, as he was the one who had murdered King Collina, though no one knew this, and he backed the Quarren while slandering the Mon Calamari as egregious overlords. This would have the intended effect, as the Quarren soon left the capital and ceased communications with the Mon Calamari. A battle looked imminent, so Skywalker informed the Republic of the situation and called for reinforcements, which were dispatched under the command of Captain Rex, Kit Fisto, and Ahsoka Tano, though with the situation so uncertain, they knew not if they would arrive in time. The Quarren had their reinforcements in the form of aquadroids, which were supplied to them by the CIS, and these soon amassed outside the capital alongside the Quarren forces, while the Mon Calamari soldiers prepared their defences under Prince Li Cha and Captain Gil Akbar. They waited until Tamson, openly leading the separatist forces, finally gave the order to attack. The Battle of Mon Cala then began. Under a hail of fire, Tamson's forces charged forward to close the gap, as the Quarren's area of expertise was in melee. The aquadroids provided the firepower they needed to reach their enemies' lines, and once they reached the outskirts of the city, Akbar had his melee fighters surge out, and a bitter battle ensued. Given the time span, it is likely both forces never truly reached the full potential size of their army, but the belligerents still fielded considerable forces. The Quarren soon began to gain ground. This was halted by the arrival of the Republic reinforcements, scuba clones, specially trained to fight in aquatic environments. They joined the battle and gave the Mon Calamari the edge they needed to force Tamson to retreat. The fight was won, but they gathered their wounded and prepared their defences again. It was doubtless that they would attack once more, as the droids began amassing in the coral below. Tamson soon returned, knowing time was not his ally, as he could not allow his foe to assemble more manpower, or for the Republic to send a dedicated task force. he set once more upon the capital, this time bringing heavier equipment. These were probably being held in reserve during the prior attempt, as he estimated he could win the battle without their use, but given his foe was reinforced, he unleashed these now into the Battle of the Ocean. These were the Hydroid Medusa, an invention from Tamsin's native world of Kakaris. Half monster, half machine, they held the appearance of cyborg jellyfish. Though this may sound amusing to us, they were terrible on the battlefield, given their cybernetic enhancements. Tamsin had them mass in the center, and they led the assault upon the city, while the Quarren and Aquadroids assaulted from the flanks. Given that Akbar had no heavy equipment to counter, he could only try his best as the Hydroids closed in and began electrocuting his soldiers. Akbar's flanks became overwhelmed, and the situation started to deteriorate even more rapidly with the arrival of the Trident-class assault ships Tamsin also had at his disposal. With their front line all but destroyed, the Jedi took what remaining forces they had and fled into the caves below the capital, handing the city over to Tamsin and the Quarrens. With the city under their control, Nosori expected this to be a change of government in his and the Quarrens' favour, but these ideas were soon dispelled as Tamsin and Dooku began to dictate the direction of the planet, with the Separatist leadership enslaving the defeated Mon Cala and moving them into camps below the capital. Though they knew as long as Prince Li Cha was free, the conflict could not be resolved. The prince himself, meanwhile, was still hiding in the caves, moving from place to place to avoid detection. They tried to escape via Amidala's ship, but it was rigged with explosives and set as a trap for the prince, though this attempt on his life failed. With nothing left, they contacted the Jedi Council and informed them of their desperate situation. The Republic did not have forces to spare, nor more troops that specialized in subaquatic warfare, and so the war effort looked to be lost. Kenobi, unwilling to admit defeat just yet, suggested they appeal to the Gungans for aid, as they lived primarily underwater and were experts at such warfare. This was accepted, and the Gungans agreed to send a portion of their Grand Army to assist Li Cha. In preparation, the Jedi targeted sonar and tracking installations around the capital, which alerted Tamsin to the incoming danger, though he could do nothing but wait for the attack, and soon the Gungan army arrived. The Mon Cala survivors attacked precisely when the Gungans arrived. The formidability of the Gungans forced the Quarrens and droids back. The plan was for the two Republic-allied forces to link up and drive towards the city, but Tamsin knew this could not be allowed to happen. Thinking quickly, he sent his Trident ships towards both battle sites and had them create vortexes in the water. This wreaked havoc on both sides, as they threw everyone around and about, destroying any battle lines, but this turned the tide, as Tamsin now sent his reserves, which quickly captured those trapped in the vortex. Only Tano and the Prince were able to escape. The battle seemed well and truly over, as the Republic had no more men to spare, and even the Jedi had been captured. Soon they were able to capture Li Cha as well, who pleaded with Nosor to join him against Tamsin. This plea was not answered, and Tamsin prepared a public execution for the prince. All were expecting for this battle to be an utter defeat for the Republic, but fittingly for the ocean world, one more tide was left to turn. Nosor had started this war not with a hatred for the Mon Cala, but because he felt his people were not being heard. His fellow Quarren felt likewise, and given the rising number of CIS troops getting involved and the brutality of these troops, they became aware of the devil they had entreated. Equally revealing was Tamsin's declaration of himself as ruling governor of Mon Cala and its admission into the CIS, leaving neither the Mon Calamari nor Quarren in charge of their own world. At the execution of Li Cha, Nosor had one of his men inform Akbar that the Quarren were on his side, and at a given signal, they freed Li Cha and all their prisoners, and together, both groups set upon the droids. Tamsin fled and gathered his forces as quickly as he could. A fight broke out once more in the capital, though this time, Tamsin had no more tricks, and soon his forces were overwhelmed by the now united locals. In the ensuing rout, Tamsin was personally killed by the prince, ending the battle. Li Cha was then crowned King of Mon Cala, with the backing of all of the natives of the planet. The CIS, primarily Tamsin, had played their hand too heavily, and would never again have the chance to bring Mon Cala onto their side. This, though, was but one of many such civil wars that raged across the galaxy, and there were many more planets with internal strife for them to exploit. In the next episode of this series, we will talk about the Battle of Umbara. If you want to see more episodes, make sure to subscribe and press the bell button. Please consider liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.